right. Good Tuesday evening, everyone. Thanks for checking up with your forecast here in the Texas-Oklahoma Panhandles. It is 5:38 p.m. It is June 17th. We got our first severe warning storm up there in the Oklahoma Panhandle. This storm's really starting to blossom pretty quick as it comes across Highway 54 there just around the Hooker, Oklahoma region. This is moving to the east, so it's about to move past the highway, move in the direction of Boyd and Bryan's Corner, and probably stay north of Hardesty there on Highway 412. But again, this is our first severe warning storm of the evening and will likely again become one that we'll have to keep an eye on here through the next couple of hours. That storm did just get a severe warning on it, warned for half-dollar size tail and winds up to 60 miles per hour. Moving east-southeast at 25 miles per hour. You can see that hail core really starting to develop. Storms for today are likely to be semi-discrete supercells. That means they're going to have a tendency to have a rotating updraft. These are the kinds of storms that pose risks for all hazards, including tornadoes, which is why that tornado watch is in effect until 10 p.m. this evening for areas like Beaver County in the Oklahoma Panhandle, Ochiltree, Hemphill, Lipscomb, and Roberts County in the Texas Panhandle, which again is where this storm is going to be moving into here through the next couple of hours. So this is again the first storm that we've seen initiate along that cold front, crashing to the south, and will likely ride that boundary and could do some interesting things through this evening. So that is something that we'll continue to watch closely for the next few hours. Just a severe warning storm for right now, but as it continues to get beefier and more intense in nature, may start to take on some of those supercell characteristics and will start to spin and will be one to definitely monitor. You can see right now, it looks like it's just mostly outflow dominant. Again, that storm really just got going. At least the wind's moving away from the radar. So just something that we'll watch. Again, this thing's probably going to start to get a hook on it pretty quick. The conditions up there are actually pretty ripe for supercells. So don't be surprised if they try and produce tornadoes today. These are going to be supercells that are semi-discrete in nature. So areas like Perryton, Booker, Darrowsette, Follett, Beaver, Forgan, Slapout, Bryan's Corner, all of you guys are going to be in that tornado watch, which again just means the conditions are there. It does not mean you will see a tornado, but the conditions are at least high enough that the Storm Prediction Center and the National Weather Service have collaborated together to put that watch out there until 10 o'clock this evening. So that's the only one that's in the viewing area right now. We still have this storm up here that we need to watch also. This one is going to move in the direction of northwest Union County. It does have some rotation in it, at least way up above, way aloft. Again, this is something that really can't be seen very well by the Amarillo radar, but it is moving in a southeast direction, and this one does have some rotation with it, way aloft, which is again why it's got that radar indicated tornado warning. But that one we'll have to watch for more SkyCam there in Des Moines, New Mexico. We should get a pretty good view of it as it comes to the north of Des Moines here over the next hour. But again, that one probably going to move into an environment where it's not really conducive for tornadoes. It's in a cold pool from yesterday's thunderstorms. So this is the storm that we're watching for right now. Again, that one's warned until 6:15 p.m. this evening. So this is warned for half-dollar size hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. Just a severe warm storm for right now. Again, it's about to move into an environment where it will probably become, or at least take on, some more supercell characteristics where it wants to have that tendency to rotate or spin. So all hazards possible today, including tornadoes. So Barry's out there. He is in Lipscomb County right now. He's probably about to come into Lipscomb, the community, and that's right here, kind of in the central side of the county. He's headed north, probably going to hit the highway, head west through Darozette and Booker, and then kind of get up here closer to this storm right up here. But he's about 30 to 40 minutes out from being able to get a good visual of that storm for right now. I got a couple of other chasers that are up there too. We've got Blake, who's in Pampa, headed north, and sounds like Josh is pretty close to that storm. He may actually be live here soon on that one. So until they get on it, we'll just continue with the radar. So there's a new mesoscale discussion that was just put out. Sounds like that one's going to be portions of the South Plains and into the Panhandle of Texas and Southwest Oklahoma. So that's kind of that southeast portion of our viewing area. Watch issuance probability is 40% for that MD that came out. They're just talking about, severe wind gusts likely with any high base thunderstorms that can initiate. Visible satellite does show some increasingly agitated high base cumulus developing along the dry line across the southeast Panhandle and back into the plains. Looks like we do have a few storms trying to pulse up out there anyway. So that'll be another area to watch as those storms move out pretty quick across the southeast Panhandle. But those are going to probably impact areas like Childress, Paducah. Those storms will probably struggle until they get off the Cap Rock. I was talking to some of our chasers about this. One, we've got the outflow boundary has surged pretty far south through the Panhandle. Currently made its way through Hereford, has made its way through Happy. So areas north of that line are actually behind the outflow boundary of some previous thunderstorm convection from early this morning up there in Kansas. That actually kept us from getting to 100 degrees here in Amarillo today. Not going to complain about that, but we are in the triple digits still in the South Panhandle. But storms are firing, in that southeast quadrant of this low pressure center. There's a triple point there south of Clarendon. So kind of in southeast of theirs where we expect most of the storm chances to kind of, spike here in the next couple hours. Those are going to pose mostly a damaging wind threat than anything else. The watch probability is only at 40% with that. So sounds like Josh is in slap out. He's about to head west on 412 so he can catch up to this storm over here. So he's probably about 30 minutes out. Barry seems to be about 40 minutes, and Blake's probably a little over an hour away from getting a visual of that storm. This is another reminder too. Make sure you guys have multiple ways of staying warned for today. The National Weather Service is undergoing maintenance, which was scheduled for this week. It was actually rescheduled from late May to mid-June. They're undergoing some software updates, which is impacting the NOAA weather radio frequencies here in the panhandles. That's going to continue through tomorrow, and then they should be back up online on the 19th. But if you are trying to use a NOAA weather radio here in the panhandle, probably not going to get those frequencies to work today with the maintenance that's being undergone there at the National Weather Service office, which is where a lot of that stuff's hubbed out of. So if you have a NOAA weather radio, it won't probably work in the panhandle, at least not for today. If you get into northwest Oklahoma, those frequencies should be fine. Those, again, were upgraded a couple of weeks ago, and the upgrades are now being made here in the panhandles to some of that software at the office there in the National Weather Service. So NOAA weather radio frequencies not going to work here in the Texas-Oklahoma panhandle. If you get into western Oklahoma, they should be working just fine, so you may not be getting those warnings on the radio frequency if that's what you're utilizing up there in Texas and Beaver County. Yeah, so it looks like that's a lone thunderstorm that's pulsing up very quick. It's got a really nice anvil blowing up on top of it right now. That storm right here that you're looking at, likely going to become more of a long-lived thunderstorm. Probably will become a supercell here quickly as it starts to track in a southeast direction around 25 miles per hour. So this is going to track right kind of through the southwest corner of Beaver County, probably going to stay north of Perryton, but we'll start tracking towards Darozette, Booker, and Follette here over the coming hours. So this is a storm that you guys will need to pay a close attention to through this evening. Looks like that storm there from Trinidad and Colorado seems to be struggling to maintain a core. It does not look like it's as explosive as the storm that just blew up there in Texas County. This one's really just gone up very quick. Looks like it's starting to take on some of that hook feature. You can see again that just that tiny appendage there just to the north of Hardesty is starting to show up there in that last couple of scans. So this is a supercell, y'all. You can see again there's your couplet or your meso. So you want to see for rotation, you want to see these greens and reds stacked up right next to one another. So red's just those winds moving away from the radar, green moving towards the radar. So there is some rotation that's measured aloft. That's about 8,000 feet off the ground. This is actually kind of in a gap between radars. The closest radar from the National Weather Service perspective is Dodge City, and then you also have Amarillo too, which both of those are again measuring at about 9,000 feet off the ground. So those radars are kind of scanning this storm way up off the ground. It's really hard to get ground truth observation with what's going on there without the spotter network. So spotters are going to be really useful for this storm in the location that it's at there in the Oklahoma Panhandle. But this is moving southeast at 25 miles an hour. Should start to impact areas like Bryan's Corner here within the hour. You can see definitely has got that inflow notch starting to show up. You've got that nice little hook appendage here. So you've got inflow coming in right in here, and you've got that RFD cut or that rear flank downdraft starting to allow that storm to take that hook effect, or at least that hook look on radar. And so this is a supercell. This thing has only been, around for about 30 minutes, so it's taken on supercell characteristics very quickly. Definitely think this storm may be one to watch for the next couple of hours. Probably going to pose a risk for all hazards, including tornadoes, as it kind of makes its way through the northeast panhandle this evening. So it doesn't look like that scan's real good on the velocities, at least not this one, but you've got an inflow notch in here, and you do have some rotation kind of right in this general area northeast of Hardesty. Again, Hardesty's down here. Your rotation's about 7.5, 8 miles to the northeast, and it's moving east-southeast. So it's going to pass to your northeast in Hardesty. It's moving in the direction of Bryan's Corner. This storm's still warned for half-dollar sized hail, and 60-mile-an-hour winds. But if you guys have studied supercells or know anything about supercells, they tend to be very efficient at cycling hailstones. So this storm's probably going to get a hail upgrade probably in the next update when you get that next warning from this one. So we do have that tornado watch that's going to be in effect until 10 o'clock this evening. Again, that's going to cover Beaver, Ochiltree, Lipscomb, Hemphill, and Roberts County. For the ones that we cover, it also encompasses a good chunk of northwest Oklahoma and a portion of southern Kansas. That's where you're going to have the highest likelihood for any kind of tornado potential with these storms through the next several hours. Again, I think we're going to have about a 2 or 3 hour window here in Amarillo where severe weather is possible until about, probably 9 o'clock tonight. By 10 o'clock, most of those storms will be out of the area. But here's the outlook for today from the Storm Prediction Center. You've got the marginal risk that extends all the way down into the southeast panhandle. That's just where we're expecting, or at least seeing, a few storms pulse up for right now. Those could go severe briefly. Those will pose mostly a damaging wind threat. But as you get up towards Beaver County, towards Lipscomb County, and Hemphill County, you get into that enhanced and even moderate risk for severe storms today. These are where the supercells will most likely try to develop, and that's where you're going to have those peak threats for large hail, lime size, or even larger, 80-mile-an-hour winds, and tornadoes with some of those supercells. Flood threat should be fairly isolated. Now, if we get some of these storms to train over the same spots, if you get 2 or 3 cells to pulse up along that cold front and they start to track over the same locations, flooding may become a concern at that point then. But we've been pretty dry the last week or so, so I think it's going to take probably a hefty amount of water for us to have some kind of flood concern or flood prone concern anytime soon. It's, again, been pretty dry the last week for most of us. Any storms that we have had have been relatively isolated. So here's a broad view of the panhandle. You can see a few of these cells trying to pulse up down here. These, again, will be mostly high base thunderstorms posing a wind concern. You've actually got that outflow boundary from some residual storms from last night that's continuing south. Again, that's kept our winds out of the northwest most of the afternoon here in Amarillo and in Canyon. So our temperatures actually have been relatively dialed back compared to those to the south of us. Hereford's still 100 degrees. The warmest we've been in Amarillo is 95 today. So we have not gotten to 100, even though we were expecting to get there, and that just has to do with that outflow that surged a bit further to the south. It's 104 there in Tulia, 108, or rather 88 in Perryton, and then 85 in Guyman. So that cold front continuing to surge into portion of the area. But pretty wide range in temperatures for us. But again, just the one severe warning storm for right now. That is a supercell. It does have supercell characteristics. You can see that hook appendage starting to really show up on the radar. Definitely will keep an eye on this running through the rest of this evening. The storm is going to pose a risk for all hazards through the next few hours. It's moving into an environment where the dew points are in the low 70s. We've got temperatures in the high 80s, low 90s. There's some good wind shear for this storm to maintain supercell characteristics. So we're about to do a live hit on television, y'all. So if you watch me step away for a second and it gets kind of quiet, that's just what's going on. We're doing a cut in on TV. Good Tuesday evening, everyone. We've got our first severe warning storm up there in the Oklahoma Panhandle for this evening. That one warned until 6:15 p.m. We'll take a closer look at it here in a second. A few other cells trying to pulse up there just off the Cap Rock. These are going to move into places like Childress and Cottle County here over the coming hours. Those will pose mostly a damaging wind threat. This is a storm that we're going to have to watch closely over the next few hours. It is a supercell. You can see it's got that hook feature to it. So you've got some strong inflow there. That storm is rotating. It's about to move into an environment where it's very conducive for all kinds of hazards. Very large hail, damaging winds. It's probably going to have the chance to produce a couple tornadoes before it exits the panhandles tonight. So this is the one that we'll have to watch closest. Again, you can see there is some rotation already measured aloft there at about 8,000 feet. Not anything measured there close to the ground yet, but that is a supercell. We'll continue to monitor it very closely. Tornado watch will run until 10 p.m. this evening. That encompasses 5 counties in the northeast panhandles, and we do have that threat up to a moderate risk up there in portions of Beaver County, which is again where most of those significant supercells are most likely. We'll break down your full forecast coming up in 18 minutes. We are live on YouTube tracking the storms. So let's go ahead and jump back over. Jump back over to radar. Take a closer look at that supercell up there in the northeast. You can see it's starting to get more of a hook feature on reflectivity. So you can see that there in the last scan, definitely a supercell at this point. You can see storm relative velocity suggesting that there is some broad rotation encompassing that inflow notch and the rear flank downdraft of the thunderstorm. Looks like there could be, again, some areas of some milder rotation inside or embedded in this. You've got a little bit some rotation in here. You've got some counterclockwise, or rather clockwise rotation in here, counterclockwise over here, some rotation kind of down in this general area. So this is a storm to watch closely. Again, we are about to watch it move into an environment where it will likely try to produce all hazards today. Very large hail, damaging winds, and a couple of tornadoes. Got a couple of chasers, actually got 3 chasers that are going to be up there momentarily here in the next 10 to 30 minutes. Definitely a supercell. Look at that hook feature on that storm. This thing's likely going to try and do some interesting things over the next couple hours. So the low-level wind shear for this storm is going to increase as it moves into Beaver County. Again, just an elevated supercell right now, but once it kind of gets towards Bryan's Corner, this thing's probably going to try and put down a tornado or two with the environment that it's going to move into. Temperature's 91 in Lipscomb. The dew point's 70 there. Dew point 70 at Paladura Reservoir. Temperature there is 85. So again, that's kind of just to the south of this storm. Paladura Reservoir's right up in here. You got Lipscomb over here. So you've got temperatures in the high 80s, low 90s out ahead of this thing with dew points in the 70s. So a lot of warm, rich, moist air that's heading into this storm. And there's a lot of low-level wind shear, a lot of directional wind shear ahead of this thunderstorm. So it's probably going to try and produce a tornado or two today. That couplet doesn't look overly intense right now. It's pretty broad, kind of disorganized. But reflectivity certainly shows there is a very big inflow notch within that storm. So here's your inflow notch feeding into that supercell. You've probably got an RFD, is what we call it. It's the acronym for it. It's just a rear flank downdraft. So you've got winds starting to surge out ahead of this thing. These storms act like machines. They need the right amount of wind heading into them, and they need the right amount of outflow to get that perfect spin underneath them to produce those tornadoes. And we're going to have some conditions where that will be favorable over the course of this evening up until about 10 o'clock tonight. This is your big hail core. It doesn't look overly impressive, but this thing is pretty far away from the radar. We're still looking at about 7,900 feet off the ground, 8,000 feet off the ground. So none of this is relatively close to the surface. All of this is up above. Looks like we just got a new severe thunderstorm watch. Down here in Briscoe, Hall, Childress, and Cottle County. That's going to be in effect until 11 p.m. this evening. So from a broad view, again, they're just putting that watch out there to encompass some of these storms that are going to get going here in the next hour or two down here. You can already see a few of them struggling, but trying to maintain and support themselves. There's a lot of dry air at 700 millibars today, so that usually doesn't mean very good storm activity here on the Caprock. So these storms probably will hold off until they get off the Caprock to really blossom. But you can see these storms are starting to struggle even up here in Hall County, at least momentarily. And there is a triple point here that's just south and southwest of Clarendon. You've got some outflow that's surging back into the dry line. When this stuff catches up to it, we may get some better storms to initiate on this dry line down here in the southeast panhandle. But it does look like we'll have at least probably a couple of storms try and get going down there this evening. And that, again, is a severe thunderstorm watch in effect until 11 p.m. this evening. This is still an elevated supercell. Once this thing gets into that environment out there in Beaver County, I would expect this thing to probably go surface base and try and plant tornado pretty quick. Right now, it's still elevated, but once this thing does get attached to that surface moisture and that surface instability, this storm's probably going to try and become a dominant supercell and maintain a good core over the next several hours. So don't be shocked if this thing tries to produce some tornadoes here over the next couple hours. Again, right now it's an elevated supercell, but it is one to monitor. Once it moves into that environment there in Beaver County, this thing likely is going to blossom into a really intense supercell. The biggest risk, at least in the near term, as it becomes a discrete surface-based supercell, would be tornadoes. It would also pose a risk of large hail and damaging winds too. The large hail would be another big risk with this one. So peak intensity for tornado potential with this storm right now, just given the environment that it's moving into, would likely be on the order of about 100 to 130 mile an hour winds should a strong tornado end up being produced from this cell over the next 2 to 3 hours. That's going to, again, be for areas downwind of this. So from probably just north of Perryton to Twin Grove, up there kind of from Follett back to Twitchell. This whole general area needs to watch this storm closely. Again, the environment for today would suggest that this supercell will try and produce tornadoes as it moves into the northeast panhandle. So this storm likely is going to try and drop a tornado or two before it exits the panhandle. There's a lot of localized surface convergence out ahead of it, right there along the dry line and the cold front that's crashing south. Hail concern would be anywhere from 2 to about 3.5 inches here through the next couple hours. So through about 7 to 7:30. So let's go ahead and take a live look at that storm. This is from Chaser Berry News. Again, he is headed up he's in Booker right now, so he's getting closer to this cell. You can't see a whole lot of structure from it, but lots of low clouds out ahead of this one. Again, this storm we think is going to have a higher chance compared to the rest of them to produce a tornado here in the next couple hours. It's moving into a very conducive environment for tornadic supercell potential. So just got an updated warning. So there is what appears to be there's two areas of rotation within this storm. There's one right in here. This actually is a couplet elevated, and then there's another one right in here. So it looks like that old couplet is starting to dissipate over here. We're going to get a new one over here. This what you call an occlusion. This mesocyclone, just that rotating updraft, will cycle. You'll get some strong rotation as it starts to become cold dominant from the rear flank downdraft. It starts to get absorbed kind of back up into the storm and then just falls apart. And then you get a new area of rotation to develop out ahead of it. So that's kind of what you're seeing there. You've just got two areas of rotation. This was the old meso, and this is going to be probably your new mesocyclone that's now in the western portion of uh, of Beaver County. Again, this storm's about to move into a really conducive environment to try and put down tornadoes. So they've upped it to ping pong size hail with this storm and 60-mile-an-hour winds. They've got it moving to the southeast at approximately 30 miles per hour. So here's another live look at that feed from Barry News. You can see there's the cloud base. Again, your new area of rotation is right over in here. You've got a clear slot behind this thing. That's where your rear flank is starting to surge out behind this thunderstorm. That big supercell there. Again, that cloud base is fairly low. Once it kind of moves into that environment where the wind shear it becomes more directional or not so much unidirectional but multi-directional, then it's going to become more of a concern for tornado potential. But doesn't look like there's anything protruding underneath this cloud base. It seems to be low to the ground, but no clear signs of lowering underneath that storm, at least not for the moment. Let's go ahead and jump back and take a big view of the panhandle. Seems like that storm again still is kind of stuck in the outflow of the previous thunderstorms from yesterday. Again, it looks like that outflow boundary is kind of stuck right up in here, so it may still stay kind of just cold based and cold look to it until it gets past Perryton and closer to Booker. Again, there's that outflow boundary and dry line just kind of merged right in here. So somewhere between Perryton and Booker, this thing's probably going to take off. We're about to have our full weather hit here in less than 60 seconds, y'all. Good Tuesday evening, everyone. We've got one supercell that's continuing to make its way into the western portions of Beaver County. There's an old outflow boundary and it's kind of merging with the dry line right now. It's stuck somewhere between Perryton and Booker. So this storm's kind of on the colder side of things. So we're not expecting it to be a tornado producer, at least not right now. But as it comes across that boundary, it's likely going to try and produce tornadoes before it exits the Panhandle region. So that's the one that we need to watch most closely, at least for right now. We've got that new severe thunderstorm watch down in the southeast Panhandle, mostly due to a handful of these thunderstorms trying to pulse up there in that warm, moist sector in the South Plains. Again, those will be mostly a wind concern, but you can see definitely it's got that couplet or that little hook to it based on radar. If we take a look at the storm relative velocities, it's definitely got some elevated rotation out there as well. This is a live look from Barry News. You can see there's that cloud base again, still looks to be clear, at least free from any wall clouds or any kind of lowering potential. Looks like there was a cloud to ground lightning strike out there though with that supercell thunderstorm. Again, it's on the cold core side of the boundary. So once it comes across that boundary, this thing likely going to try and do some interesting things here through the next few hours. Again, you can see that we've got the tornado watch in effect until 10 p.m. this evening, severe thunderstorm watch until 11 p.m. The highest risk for severe weather potential is up there where that storm is at right now. Again, we'll likely try and produce all hazards over the next few hours. Line-size hail, winds up to 80 miles an hour. We'll have the chance to try and produce a tornado or two this evening. Flood concerns should be relatively isolated. We've been very dry recently, and so it's going to take quite a bit of water very quickly for us to have any kind of flood concern. Here's your computer model. You can see again a couple of cells pulsing up there out ahead of the dry line. That's expected to continue to dissipate as we go into tonight. A better round of storms expected up there in Kansas, whereas we should stay mostly quiet here in the Texas and Oklahoma Panhandle. We will see a more seasonal day tomorrow. Highs will be in the 80s behind the cold front, and then we'll end up seeing temperatures return back into the 90s on Thursday because of that ridge of high pressure that continues to put itself overhead by the end of the week. Here's your 7-day tracker. We are expecting a slightly more favorable round for rain chances moving into next week, but that's still about a week away. All right, so here is that supercell. You can see again, there's your mesocyclone. That's your hook feature on that thunderstorm. Definitely has got a cloud base on it. Does not look like there is any apparent tornado, at least not for right now. But that's where you've got that rotation down there in the south portion of that storm. So you can see again, there's your big hook feature on that storm. Let's take a look at storm relative velocities. You can see that there is a very good inflow notch feeding that storm, but no clear rotation where the hook feature is at. You may have some minor rotation kind of on the eastern periphery of that mesocyclone. But you were just looking at Barry's live feed too. Again, this one definitely got a lower cloud-based feature to it, kind of over in the eastern quadrant. So we'll continue to watch this from Barry's live feed. This is that supercell that's in the southwest corner of Beaver County. You can see low cloud base, but no tornado or anything of that nature right now. It's just severe warned until 7 p.m. for ping pong size hail and winds up to 60 miles per hour. So this is the storm we're most concerned about this evening. Again, it'll probably be about an hour to 90 minutes before it completely gets out of the panhandles. Again, once it crosses over that dry line boundary, which is somewhere hung up between Booker and Perryton, this thing should really start to take off. But definitely is a supercell, does show some supercell characteristics, got that hook appendage there, clear inflow notch. That one's moving southeast at 30 miles an hour. If you're in Perryton, this thing is to your north. It's not very far away, but definitely will be something to monitor. Hopefully this thing passes north of y'all on Highway 83, but does look like it's going to get close-ish to town. So just make sure that y'all are paying attention. Again, just a reminder, the National Weather Service is undergoing some maintenance right now. It was scheduled for this week. And it's impacting the NOAA radio frequencies. So your NOAA weather radio here in the Panhandles is not going to work until the 19th. Again, they're undergoing maintenance right now that will continue into tomorrow. So just make sure you guys have multiple ways to be notified of severe storms in the area. So this is again what it looks like. You can see this is still just a cloud base, no apparent lowering right now. When these things produce tornadoes, it happens really quick. It can change on a dime in like 60 seconds. So this is again why it's great to have those storm spotters out there. This storm's actually kind of in a radar gap or in a radar hole. The closest radar from the National Weather Service is in Dodge City, and then there's also one here in Amarillo. But both of those are reading at about 7,000 to 8,000 feet off the ground. So anything that's at the lower levels or at the surface, those radars cannot detect, and so that's why the surface observations are always key and vital, especially in this general area of the Panhandle. Definitely got a cloud base, a fairly low cloud base to it. Again, it's on that cooler side of the boundary, the OFB. So we'll let Barry reposition. So we've got two chasers now that are close enough. We've got some good live feed underneath this storm, see if anything's going to happen. There's a lot of dust getting kicked up underneath this storm. The couplet is now moving into the northern side of Ochiltree County. So this is moving southeast. This is, again, going to get relatively close to Perryton. Again, the couplet is north of town, moving southeast. So more than likely we'll head more in the direction of Twitchell, but the couplet is up there to the west of Highway 83 and close to County Road B. So you're getting really close to the state line. So like, East Road 350, that's kind of where you can expect that storm to have the rotation kind of overhead right now. We don't see anything at the ground right now other than just some blowing dust. Again, there is a lot of dirt underneath this storm. We haven't seen much rain here in the last week, so the ground is drying out pretty quick, even though we've been relatively wet for most of May and the first portion of June. But very pronounced supercell out there in the northeast panhandles. This is, again, the hail core is over Bryan's Corner right now. Between Gray and Bryan's Corner, you can imagine up to ping pong sized hail is going to be possible there. Winds up to 60 miles per hour going to be possible. This storm has not moved across that boundary just yet. Looks like there is a severe warning storm down in Lubbock's viewing area. Let's go ahead and zoom on out, take a closer look at that one. Talking about this storm down here, just real brief. Again, we don't see anything underneath this other supercell for right now. We'll come back to it momentarily. There's that severe warning storm there in effect until 7:15 p.m. That one is going to be warned for golf ball sized hail and winds up to 60 miles per hour. Again, this is moving to the north and east at 30 miles an hour, east northeast at 30 miles per hour. This one is not a supercell, but it does have a lot of instability to work with, and so it will produce some pretty large hail. These will likely become mostly a damaging wind threat for any of these storms that can maintain themselves here in the southeast panhandle. This is the one that we're watching for any kind of tornado potential up here coming into the north side of Ochiltree County. You see definitely a very clear hook feature to it. This is moving southeast at 30 miles an hour. So that area of rotation is coming onto Highway 83, most likely right there around the state line or just south of the state line in the northern portions of Ochiltree County. So right in here, County Road D to County Road B, over to County Road 17, this whole general area is up underneath this storm that's likely producing the most rotation, is right up in that general area. Looking at storm relative velocities again, the feature for the hook on this thing doesn't look overly impressive from a velocities standpoint. Looking at it from a visual from our storm chasers, it's very clearly a supercell. There's nothing underneath it for right now. It's definitely got a very good clear slot look to it. So here's a live look from Josh Lasseter. You can see again, there's that huge cloud base out there in the distance, and looks like there's some dust or some rain on kind of in the central portion of your screen there. Hard to make out that exact feature. It almost looks like it's a rain and hail core. There is what looks to be a funnel in the clear slot way off in the distance. That looks like that could be a funnel cloud that's starting to lower to the ground. Let's take a little bit closer look or a different angle. So there's Barry's live look at it. You can see there is a funnel cloud out there in the clear slot of that storm. Looks like it may have faded away. Doesn't look as pronounced from Josh's live feed either. All right, let's go ahead and jump back over. Looks like there's a new funnel forming. So you can kind of see where that small, this is Josh's live feed. You can see there's that small bit of precipitation falling on the left half of the storm. Looks like there could be a little bit of some rain and hail. It looks like there could be a nub funnel underneath that too. It's very hard to make out if there's any ground circulation underneath it. Looks like it is just rain and hail for the moment, and probably a little bit of some dust out there. That's right there on the rear flank of that storm. So there's that little hook feature, that small couplet there is right there just to the west of Highway 83. That very well could have been what we saw, that quick nub funnel there in the clear slot of that storm. You can see that's going to be kind of way back up in here. Again, your clear slot should be kind of in this general area. But you can see there was definitely a little bit of some rotation up underneath that. You can see there is some rotation here near Twitchell too, this storm as it's coming across the highway. So I need to watch some of this stuff too. We did see what looked like a funnel kind of in this general area. And you can see on the velocity scan, there is some rotation back in there. So this storm's going to pass to the north of Perryton. Again, it looks like it's going to miss Perryton, so you guys kind of dodging a bullet from this one, which I know that you guys probably are okay with that. Again, y'all were hit just a few years ago by that tornado. This one's moving over to Twitchell. Again, if you're in Twitchell, you need to start thinking about getting into your interior room. The storm's also capable of ping pong sized hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. So your big hail core is out here south of Balco. They're off of Highway 412. That's where you're going to see a lot of that ping pong sized hail. Winds to about 60 miles an hour. That hook feature is right over here again. We have that boundary right here. Once this thing moves across this boundary, it's likely to really take off. And it's still on what's considered the cold core side or cold pool side of the old outflow boundary from yesterday. So once that thing crosses this boundary, it should really blossom into a surface-based supercell. That's when it's going to pose that biggest concern for any kind of tornadic potential. Currently, still just a higher, just a supercell. We had one brief funnel there in the clear slot. It didn't last very long, probably 30 to 40 seconds, dissipated pretty quick. This storm, again, not completely in an environment where it's going to really blow up into a surface-based supercell just yet. That boundary appears to be right in here somewhere, just to the east of it. But once it moves over that boundary, it should take off. So it looks like that's rain. So the storm right now is, again, it's still in kind of that cold core of the cold pool from thunderstorms from yesterday. So once it crosses that boundary, which we think is very close to Booker, it should take off. Right now, it doesn't look like it's going to pose an immediate concern for a tornado potential, but as it comes across that boundary later this evening, maybe closer to 8 o'clock tonight, it may become a bigger problem. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at this storm down here. Got a couple of severe ones down in Lubbock's viewing area. These are non-supercell in nature, but they're very intense with their updraft. There's a lot of instability. These have exploded. You can see again, big hail core there north of Cone, right there south of Floydada, there in Floyd County. This storm moving east at 30 miles an hour. Got a big hail core on that one. That one's warned for limes and 60-mile-an-hour winds. So this is where you're talking about 2-inch hail, probably across Highway 62. Don't want to be punching through that one right now. It should move across the highway in about 15, 20 minutes. But that storm's going to have some big hail in it, so you don't want to be driving through that one as it moves in an easterly direction. This other severe warning storm here in Hockley and Lubbock County, north of Ropesville, is warned for ping-pong size hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. So that one's not as intense in nature. But this one's still our big supercell that we're going to watch as it moves into a more favorable environment. So it looks like that outflow boundary is surged kind of out ahead of that area of rotation. So you've got that old mesocyclone probably up in here just to the northwest of Twitchell. You've got, again, a new meso trying to form. You got probably some outflow and that rear flank downdraft kind of pushing south just off of the highway, Highway 15. So again, you've got some strong northwest winds probably coming across the highway. That's where you're going to see some of the 60-mile-an-hour winds. In Twitchell, northeast of Perryton. The hail core looks to miss Perryton too. This is going to pass to y'all's east-northeast. Ping pong size hail was observed in that storm 2 miles north of Gray. That was right there on Highway 83 as it came across the highway. So this storm seems to be cycling right now. We will watch and see what it does as it comes across this dry line boundary. The dew points out there ahead of that storm, the dew point in Lipscomb is 70. It's 67 in Paladuro Reservoir. So again, there's a lot of moisture in the lower levels for this thing to tap into. Just need it to become more surface based. Temperatures in the 80s out there ahead of that storm. 88 there in Lipscomb, 80 behind it there at Paladuro Reservoir. So temperatures in the mid 80s out here, mid to high 80s with the inflow that's feeding into that storm itself. So they went ahead and reissued for ping pong size hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. That storm's still moving in the southeast direction. It's moving really quick at 55 miles an hour now. So this thing is really booking it. Go ahead and put a 30-minute lapse on this thing. You can see again, there's probably an anticyclonic area of spin on the south extent of that storm. So got a couple of chasers now repositioning. This storm's picking up speed, so they got to make sure that they stay out ahead of it. It's moving at 55 miles an hour, so has really started to increase in its forward motion. Moving towards Twin Grove, Booker, you guys are about to fall in the hail core. Again, that's about to come across Highway 15 between Twitchell and Booker. That's where you're going to see some ping pong sized hail and winds to 60 miles per hour. That storm moving in a southeast direction at 55 miles per hour. So it is booking it. Once this storm moves into Lipscomb County, it should start to take off and become more surface based. Looks like we got a few showers trying to pulse up out here. These are all in a cold pool of air. Wouldn't really expect these to become severe or at least maintain any kind of severe characteristics. We'll watch it, but again, it's not really our main concern. This is the storm that we're watching. Again, looks like it's kind of disorganized from a supercell standpoint, but again, it's about to come across this boundary that's, up. This is your dry line. You've got the outflow boundary here. Once this thing comes across, it's going to probably really start to become more organized. So just the one severe warning storm for right now here in the Panhandles. We do have that severe thunderstorm watch for Briscoe, Hall, Childress, and Cottle County. That's going to be in effect until 11 o'clock this evening. We also have the tornado watch up here in the Northeast. It's really for this one storm up here. Again, once you kind of get past or behind this cell, your threat for tornadic potential is going to start to decrease, markedly fast. So I would not expect you to have much of a concern anymore from areas like Perryton West back towards Spearman, back towards, Bryan's Corner. You guys have already seen this storm push through, and so you're in a more stable environment. This cell's moving away from you at this point. So we'll take a quick look at this storm again from Barry's perspective. You can see again still just a supercell. It does have that bell-shaped look to it, continuing to move southeast at around 55 miles an hour. So it is moving pretty quick. So our chasers are having to stay on the move with that storm as it continues in a south and east direction. Right now, it is coming across Highway 15 there between Twitchell and Booker, moving in a southeast direction. Looks like it's, again, kind of disorganized for right now. We'll probably try and, regather itself and move into Lipscomb County here in the next 15 minutes. Lipscomb, you guys are downwind of this storm, so make sure that you are starting to prepare. It's mostly just going to be a ping pong size hail risk and 60-mile-an-hour winds for right now. Looks like there is a funnel potentially on the clear slot of that storm. Let's go ahead and take a look from Barry's perspective. You can see it back in the clear slot. Looks like there is some lowering out there. Looks like it's falling apart again. Let's take a look at storm relative velocities. This storm's still pretty disorganized from a supercell standpoint. Stop your laps here. So looking at reflectivity, you've got kind of this RFD surging out ahead of this thing right here. You've got an inflow notch where winds are feeding this storm, and you've likely got winds pushing out ahead of this thing. So if there's going to be any kind of tornado potential, it's more than likely going to be up in here in the notch. But we could have maybe way up in the back of this storm, you could have an old, dying off mesocyclone or just an area of rotation. Just kind of way in the back. Sometimes when you get these storms to have a tornado rope out, they kind of get wrapped up in the storm, and then they just kind of fall apart back in here as they get pulled away from the inflow and that warm, moist air. Tornadoes really don't like cold air. They need that warmer air to maintain themselves. And so with the RFD continuing to surge out ahead of this storm right now, it's really not overly concerning for a tornado concern, at least in the short term. So when we're looking at storm relative velocities, you're just looking at which direction the winds are really moving in this storm. So red would suggest winds are moving away from the radar, whereas green suggests that the winds are moving towards the radar. So in general, there is some broad rotation within the cell as it's moving into the east portion of Ochiltree County. This is moving away from Perryton. If you guys are in Perryton, looks like this thing is moving away from y'all's general direction. So here's that storm from a reflectivity standpoint. The rear flank downdraft continues to stay kind of way out ahead of this storm. We'll show you what it looks like from Barry's perspective when he gets a moment and gets into position. Storm's really moving pretty quick, so they're not stopped very long. So there's that storm. That's what it looks like from Barry's perspective. Again, they're not in the grandest of cell service coverage. So this is moving towards Twin Grove, Lipscomb. Booker's kind of in the main core of hail and rain right now. These storms down here in Lubbock's viewing area are being downgraded in their hail size. Sounds like they're going to drop this one to $0.50. Over here in Motley and Floyd and Dickens County. And then this one over in Hockley and Lubbock County, they still got near Wolfworth. They still have that one warned for ping pong size hail up to 1.5 inches in diameter, which can cause considerable amount of damage to things like the roof of your home, siding of a building. Sometimes that can really dent the car pretty good. Got a few other cells it looks like trying to pulse up out ahead of this one as well. So you can see we've got some additional development up here around Follette, and then a new cell pulsing up there near 83. This one's about to become less discrete of a supercell, and it's going to start to interact with a few of these other storms. Hail core looks to be mostly south of Highway 15 now, between Huntoon and Gaylord. That's right there in between Ochiltree and Lipscomb County, just south of State Highway 15. You see there's that core. Last 15 minutes went right across the highway there around Huntoon. That's where you're going to have most of the bigger hail that came through. That's moving towards Twin Grove and towards Lipscomb. So Lipscomb, you guys need to start thinking about finding shelter from this one. You're going to likely see winds to 60 miles an hour, very heavy rain, some up to ping pong size hail. It is a supercell. It's really disorganized right now, but we imagine that it's going to really blossom here as it gets into y'all's county. It's about to cross over that dry line boundary, and so it's going to get into an area where the winds at the surface are more directional. They become backed in their flow, and so that may actually allow for this storm to try and produce a tornado here in its lifetime before it exits the Texas Panhandle. So that is kind of our concern right now as it comes through Lipscomb County. The environment out there a little bit more conducive for tornado potential as it comes across that dry line boundary. So here's what it looks like from Barry's perspective. We'll go ahead and show you real quick. He's again watching that storm kind of get past him. They're in the mostly the clear slot of that storm. You can see the cloud base kind of off on the right hand side, and that clear slot of the storm on the left hand side where you're getting a lot of that white hues and the opaque color, really bright colors. That's just a clear slot of the storm where you've got the rear flank of it starting to push that storm in a south and east direction. So looks like we'll go ahead and jump back to radar. So it looks like the dew point's still kind of in that high 60s, low 70s region where that storm's moving into. Lipscomb's got a dew point of 71 out there ahead of that storm. The temperature there in Lipscomb is down to 81 degrees. Seems like some of the clouds starting to kind of cool things off. Cold front starting to crash to the south. Let's go ahead and show you those surface observations. So current temperatures right there at 92 here in the Amarillo area. You can see Perryton down to 80 degrees. So that storm again, it's got warm air out in front of it, but it's kind of, way off in the distance. And then you can see really in a very moist environment, at least in the lower levels. That wind shear does not seem to be just right for tornado potential, at least not where it's at right now. As it moves into Lipscomb County and into the west side of Oklahoma, that storm might end up becoming more organized, but appears to be struggling, which is not a bad thing. But you can see most of us well within the moist sector of this low pressure center now. Again, that dry slot continues to really squander itself. Again, if you're in Clovis, you guys are really dry out there. The dew point is 12. Not much moisture in the air there. And then you've got a completely different environment here in the Texas Panhandle, at least for most of us. So here's what your winds look like. Winds from the north up there in the Oklahoma Panhandle, from the south in Childers, Paducah, Shamrock, kind of from the west in Hemphill County. The flow looks a little bit better, at least at the surface, as you get back into western Oklahoma. This thing's, again, kind of been on the back side of the outflow boundary and the cold front. So the lower level wind shear hasn't been extremely conducive for tornado potential, at least not over the last hour and a half. We think as it moves into western Oklahoma, it will try and do some, it will try and produce a tornado or two. All right, let's go ahead and jump back over to radar. So you guys have seen the OBS with this one. So there's that supercell. Looks that last scan, it's a bit more organized. You can see that new area of rotation kind of right in here, just to the southwest of Twin Grove. You've got your inflow notch feeding the cell. Here's your hook feature. There's not a whole lot of strong winds within that storm right now, at least not tight rotation. This thing's in very rural, open country. It's moving into the Canadian River Valley. Our chasers may have a harder time keeping up with it and having good cell service when they get down there in the river valley. So there was 1-inch hail reported there, 9 miles southeast of Floydada in Floyd County. That's the size of a quarter. So hook feature is southwest of Twin Grove. Twin Grove, you guys are about to see the hail core of this storm pass overhead. This is moving in a southeast direction. It's moving southeast. It's moving east southeast at 45 miles an hour. Still warned for ping pong sized hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds. This is impacting Lipscomb, Darozette, Follett. You guys are going to see some rain from it. It looks like a bulk of this is going to move towards Lipscomb, though. Cloud base is getting a bit broader. Looks like it just had to cycle through. Got a little donut hole in there. And reflectivity. Interesting little feature. Subbounded weak echo region is what we call it. This thing right in here. Looking at velocities, the rotation is pretty close to that, so this thing might be coming across the boundary right now, the dry line. It's definitely becoming more of a HP supercell, more of a classic to HP look to it. So here's what it looks like from Barry's perspective. You can see there's that big broad cloud base, that lower base of the updraft of the storm. It looks to be clear and funnel free for right now. They are on the backside chasing it instead of it chasing them. So they've let that storm pass them, so they don't necessarily have to make sure to stay out of its way. They can watch it from a distance at this point. So they're following this storm. They are south of Booker somewhere, heading in this direction, south and east. So looks like this storm's latched onto the boundary at this point. Again, that was something we were kind of expecting. So I think from this point forward, this storm's going to have a lower cloud base to it. You may start to get some better opportunities for it to try and produce funnels and maybe even try and produce a tornado as it moves into a better environment. The inflow notch of this thing's really starting to get very beefy. It looks like that last scan came in contaminated. We'll back it up one. So there's your inflow notch. I mean, you can really see this thing's getting fed by some very strong winds. That is feeding that storm. So this thing in the next 15 minutes may start to look a little bit more mature and more organized as it's kind of latched onto that boundary there in Lipscomb County. Looks like it's latched onto the boundary. Storm relative velocities show very good inflow feeding into that cell. Let's jump back over to reflectivity. Just kind of waiting for that next scan to come in. Looks like it just did. So you've got inflow feeding into this storm. You've got some rotation. Here, let's clear this off. You've actually got another cell feeding into this thing right here. So you've got an inflow tail, beaver tail, feeding that cell there. But again, mostly these winds are heading into the storm. You've got some heading to the radar. So there is some broader rotation right here south of Twin Grove. This thing is about to move into Lipscomb County, is in Lipscomb County, but about to move into Lipscomb. Still warned for ping pong size hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds. So that's still the only severe warm storm we have inside the viewing area. We've got a few showers and storms kind of just above severe limits there in Lubbock County, south of Lubbock. Been a lot of reports of some penny to quarter-sized hail there on the south side of Lubbock. Storm there exiting Floyd County. It's moving into Motley County. This one will be one to watch for Cottle County here later this evening. The storms down here not going to pose as big of a concern for tornado potential. This is mostly going to be a damaging wind threat for areas like Paducah as this storm continues to move in a west to east fashion. The strongest cell that we're most concerned about right now is this one right here. You can see we've got some false echoes coming in from that cell here. Again, you've got the radar shooting through it and giving off a false return. That's why you've got this thing out here, all of these false echoes heading into Oklahoma and back into Kansas. It actually looks like that's probably attenuation from one of the wind turbines out there. You can even see a few of them. So hail core currently between Lipscomb and Gaylord. Darrowsette, you guys are probably just seeing some rain for right now. That storm's moving southeast at 45 miles per hour. It's warned until 7:30 p.m. That's going to cover areas north and west of Lipscomb. We'll likely see this reissued here in probably 5 minutes, but generally we'll be still moving in that same direction, south and east. So expecting the same concerns, same hazards. Are going to keep it with 60-mile-an-hour winds and ping pong size hail. Cell definitely looks pretty messy. Again, there that outflow is starting to surge back out ahead of it. Almost like that rear flank downdraft is keeping this thing from becoming any kind, showing any true tornado potential. So you've got this outflow right in here, and this thing keeps staying out ahead of the main core of this storm. So it's staying just far enough out ahead of this thing that the area of rotation in there is in the cold core of the thunderstorm, and tornadoes really don't like that cold air. The wind shear at the lower levels just really isn't as conducive for spin ups. So if the RFD stays out ahead of this thing, it will probably still just become just an HP supercell. It is just warned for ping pong size hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. But the outflow continues to stay just far enough away from the main area of rotation within the hook to keep it from doing anything funky. So your outflow is right in here. Your rotation would be in this general area if you were looking for tornado concern. So they just re-upped that warning. That one's going to be in effect until 8 o'clock tonight. We'll zoom back in. So that new warning in effect until 8 p.m. That one's warned for ping pongs and 60-mile-an-hour winds. Still moving east, southeast at 45 to 50 miles an hour. The storm is moving pretty quick. Lipscomb, you guys are about to see the core of this storm move overhead. Again, expect things like ping pong size hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. So got a new area of development within the inflow of this cell. This is your beaver tail, starting to get a new hook to it. There's almost like a hook feature back up in here. There's another area here south of Lipscomb now. So new area of rotation down here coming across the highway, just passed over Highway 305. Got a good inflow notch now starting to show back up on radar and storm relative velocities. So you've got winds moving away from the radar out here. You got it moving towards the radar here. So this is where your hook feature is within that cell now, moving over towards Coburn and Higgins. So this lone supercell is about to exit the Texas Panhandle. Once it's done, I think most of our stuff will be focused on anything that develops down here around Childress and Cottle County. Again, this is really going to be the only cell capable of producing a tornado. One-inch hail was reported in Derazette. Can't really see a whole lot there from our Skycam in Mobiti. We'll try and get it turned a little bit. Going too far to the northeast. So there's the big anvil top. Again, we probably won't see a whole lot of structure from this distance. You can kind of make out some of the updrafts feeding into that storm. This one right in here. Again, there is some rotation there. It is still very disorganized, very chaotic in nature. It's what our chasers are kind of reporting the same thing. It's pretty quiet in the chats from the National Weather Service. Seeing some golf ball sized hail in Lubbock. So it looks like this is kind of the more impactful storm right now, just given the location that it's in. That's at 148th in Indiana. That storm warned for golf ball sized hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. So they're seeing golf ball sized hail up in here. kind of this generalized area, a little bit northwest of Woodrow. So that storm there in Lipscomb County, probably still going to pose a risk for severe weather and severe hazards for the Panhandle up until about 8:30 tonight, and then we should start seeing things get quiet here. We may see some additional development back up in this area. Those storms, for the most part, look to stay below severe limits. There are a few high-res models that are starting to suggest that we could see a few storms develop back there, though. They don't look like they're going to be strong to severe, though. So the hook of this storm is now east of 305. It is approaching Coburn and Higgins. You guys can expect winds up to 60 miles per hour and some ping pong size hail. The hail core right now is mostly east of Lipscomb, but there's probably going to be a little bit in here too. Looking at storm relative velocities, this does have some rotation inside it, but it is definitely disorganized. That rotation is right up in that inflow notch in here. This is still 9,500 feet off the ground, so doesn't look like this thing's vertically stacked well. Most of your low level rotation you want over here if you're looking for tornado potential to be kind of in this general area. They're going to up the storm to golf ball size tail, which is 1.75 inches in diameter. It's like it's really wrapped up right now. Definitely becoming an HP supercell. So there is some rotation right in here. That's starting to get fairly tight, but that's kind of in your inflow notch, so that may be very well off the ground. So if this thing's going to produce a tornado, it's probably going to be really close to the state line. Looks like that next scan's come in. We've got, again, a really tight couplet aloft. This thing's very organized, way up above the ground. Very tight rotation showing up right in here. This is in the inflow notch of the cell. This is still almost 10,000 feet off the ground, though. So the ground circulation does not appear to be there. This thing is becoming better organized, though. See if we can't take a live feed from Barry just to see what this thing looks like visually. You can see again, doesn't looks very HP look to it. I mean, that thing is really rolling in very quick too. You see a lot of it just wrapped in rain. It's going to be really hard to get a visual of anything inside that storm as it's become wrapped in precipitation. That area of rotation is right in here. And if you take a look at reflectivity, you can see again, they're kind of over in here between Glacier and Coburn. We're looking back up in that direction. It's just there's so much precipitation inside the hook of this storm. It's going to be really hard to see if there's anything at the surface. Really tight rotation, but this is about 10,000 feet off the ground. 9,700 feet off the ground. 9,600. So new area of rotations right in here. Still in the inflow notch. It's not necessarily in the hook of this store, but again, this is still way off the ground. There could be some better rotation down in here closer to Coburn. You are getting a little bit of some lowering on the debris tracker on that scale. That's just indicating probably some non-spherical objects in there. It's probably a lot of biological material being fed into that storm, probably dust, bugs, things of that nature. Again, you can see here's your inflow notch, and if you look at correlation coefficient, corresponds very well with the inflow that's feeding into that storm. You just got all of this biological material, probably some flies, mosquitoes, just things that aren't spherical that are getting fed up into that storm. You know, I mean, it correlates really well with the inflow notch. Definitely starting to become a more organized supercell. It's just going to be wrapped in precipitation. It may start to get really hard to see what all's going on as it's about to cross Highway 60. So if you're in Coburn and Higgins, you need to start finding shelter. This is moving into y'all's locations. It's capable of golf ball sized tail and winds up to 60 miles per hour. Coburn, you guys are right there kind of in the core of this storm right now in the rear flank in that hook. You do have a little bit of some rotation there. It's just really broad, really weak. The tighter rotation and really the strong rotations back up inside the storm. I mean, looking at some of those winds, estimated around 80 to 85 miles an hour. Definitely an impressive looking supercell. It just does not look like that tornado threat is imminent right now. Let's take a quick look again from Barry's feed. You can see there's the inflow notch. Again, you can see these lower clouds feeding into the storm. So that's kind of where that rotation is, right there out just next to the rear flank where all that rain's being wrapped up behind it. Once this one leaves the panhandle, we'll start focusing on this one down here. It's still outside the viewing area, but it may start getting closer to Cottle County here. They went ahead and just kind of re-upped the warning out there over in Norman's region. That is going to be for $half size hail, or rather ping pong size hail, and winds to 60 miles per hour. So rotation still very apparent there, at least aloft in the storm. Definitely a big supercell. It just seems to be an HP supercell that's not producing a tornado at the moment. So there's your little hook feature there within that storm. This is definitely an HP high precipitation supercell. Rotation aloft appears to be kind of stuck in the inflow notch. This storm just tilted and just spinning a lot. This storm is about to move out of the Texas Panhandle, though, so we may start to get some quieter weather here this evening. Sure enough, big storm. Definitely seeing a lot of blowing dust behind this cold front as it's crashing through. Temperature is 77 now in Dumas. Wind there directly out of the north at about 20 to 30 miles per hour. Let's go ahead and show you what it looks like there in Dumas. There is some blowing dust out there. Wind sustained at 26 miles an hour. So again, that's just again allowing for some lower visibility. So here's your winds. You can see they're sustained at 20 to 35 miles an hour. Probably getting some stronger gusts out there too. Winds gusted to 42 in Dumas. Stinnett has gusted to 40. Sunray gusted to 40. Dalhart gusting to 41. Been seeing winds gust around 40 to 45 miles per hour behind the cold front. So latest scans still show very tight couplet there, way up above the atmosphere, above the surface. It's at about 10,000 feet up. Lower levels just don't suggest that there is any tornado potential on the ground right now. It's definitely a lot of rotation aloft, though. Kind of two areas of some spin. There's some right here. There's some up here. There's actually kind of three areas where there is some rotation, all on probably that RFD outflow boundary of some sort. So it looks like things are about to quiet down. Again, we'll continue to monitor this one until 8:45 or so. But looks like it may move out of the area sooner than that. We may be done with the severe weather, at least up here, before 8:45, closer to about 8:30. Looks like both of our chasers on this storm, or all three of them, have now moved into western Oklahoma. The storm is soon going to move out of the Texas Panhandle. Amarillo is still going to be our best, I think, radar option out here. It's in a hole between all of the radars. Lowest level scans that we can get on this one's about 10,000 feet. You see very tall thunderstorm. That cloud top height's getting close to 60,000 feet on that overshooting top. So very big storm. You can see there's the updraft right in there. And you've got reflectivity of DBZ values of almost 70 all the way up, or rather 60 all the way up to about 40,000 feet. So very, very strong thunderstorm. That's why it's worn for golf ball sized hail. It's moving across Highway 60 again. Higgins, you guys are experiencing some heavy rain, some golf ball sized hail. This is going to move into Roger Mills and Ellis County here quickly. It will no longer pose a threat to the Texas Panhandle. Once this storm's out of here, the tornado threat should be pretty well done for us. The concern was any of these supercells along the boundary that continued to pop up there. They were, again, the biggest concern for us this evening. But once this storm is done, things should start to get much quieter here in the panhandles. Looks like it may have had a brief tornado touchdown there on the Hemphill County side. So it did just get a tornado warning out there in Roger Mills and Ellis County. It's radar indicated. Again, this thing's finally moving into the other side of the dry line. Looks like we got a bad scan. There we go. So you've got some good rotation in that thing. Correlation coefficient not crazy low, so if there is anything on the ground, it's not causing any damage to get lofted into the 10,000 foot range on the radar. But definitely an HP supercell. It's going to be hard to make anything out. Barry News does say that there may have been a brief touchdown. So this thing did just get a tornado warning as it's moving into western Oklahoma. It is just radar indicated for right now, but you can see it's definitely starting to tighten up in terms of that spin and that low level rotation. It's really contaminated on the storm relative velocities, but this is kind of more in line with where the hook of this storm is at. Barry does say they think that there was a brief spin up there on the Higgins County or Hemphill County side of the state line before it moves into portions of western Oklahoma back there in Ellis County. So that rotation definitely starting to come more in line with where the hook feature is located on this storm. So that's why they've gone ahead and issued that tornado warning. You can see there's that rotation right in here. That hook feature really showing up more pronounced again. There's more than likely a tornado probably potentially really starting to increase that chance right now there on the western side of Ellis County. This is southeast of Higgins. Higgins is way up here. It's about 10 miles southeast of Higgins. So that's where your tornado potential is going to be, right in here. So looks like north of County Road 73, 1710, right in here. This is where you've got that greatest tornado potential. Yeah, this is definitely a very, very clear sign of tight rotation. This is most likely going to have a tornado underneath it right in here. I mean, you've got some really strong gate-to-gate winds. Again, this is on the southern extension of that cell. This is where you would typically see your highest tornado potential is right in here. You've got gate-to-gate winds of 130 miles, 145 miles an hour. That's a really strong rotation. If there's not a tornado on the ground, I would be kind of shocked. You see, if we're looking for a debris ball, it would be kind of stuck in that rotation too, kind of right in this general area, right where that rotation is tightest. Yeah, it sounds like there is a tornado on the ground out there right now. Spotters reporting a tornado out there in Ellis County, wrapped in rain. Last scan doesn't seem to be coming in very well. But reports of a tornado that was inside the rain shield or rain bands of this cell, more than likely it's going to be in this bounded weak echo region right in here is where you're going to have that possible tornado on the ground. It's in between 1710, north 1710 and north 1730. This is moving southeast at 45 miles an hour. This is out mostly in open country. This is going to be really close to the Canadian River. So north of Roll, north of Crawford, there is a what likely will be a tornado on the ground out there. Let's go ahead and jump back just one scan. So you can see there's where that rotation is at. This is where you've got that tornado on the ground moving in a south and east direction. So we'll just continue to watch this storm move out of the Panhandle. This is no longer a threat for us here in the Panhandles. You're probably still dealing with a little bit of some heavy rain and some hail here on the back side of the storm over on the eastern side of Lipscomb and Hemphill County. Tornado potential's moved out of the area. You can see there's, again, that thing looks like it's already crossed over the river. But most likely a tornado on the ground with how strong that couplet is and really how strong that gate-to-gate wind speed is. You're talking about 150, 155 mile an hour winds gate to gate. So looks like that's possibly a large tornado with how strong that couplet is. Yeah, we're live right now, but I mean, the storm's just moved out of the area if you need to do something. All right, so there's that confirmed tornado warning. Again, looks like this thing is on the other side of the state line. This is over in Ellis and Roger Mill. The tornado's probably in Roger Mills County at this point, on the south side of the Canadian River, right there near 1780 Road and East Road 740. It looks like it may have actually crossed back over the Canadian River in that last scan, but it is confirmed. The Dow's got a really good signature on radar of this. Again, they're out there chasing this. Dow is Doppler on wheels, but definitely has got some really low level rotation. There's a confirmed tornado that is on the ground, radar confirmed, and a couple of spotters visually stating that they can see it there, at least briefly wrapped in rain. This is over in Roger Mills in Ellis County. Again, this is right there near the Canadian River, moving southeast at 45 miles an hour. This is moving away from the Texas Panhandle, so no longer going to pose a threat to any of the counties that we cover. And things really getting pretty quiet now with that storm moving out of the area. We'll likely see a cancellation of the severe thunderstorm warning soon over in Hemphill and Lipscomb County. Likely going to see that tornado watch probably expire early for a small section of the Panhandle, if not all 5 counties here in the Panhandle. And then we will again see storms continue to push away from the southeast Panhandle too. We've got a few showers pulsing up here, but I think we're kind of on the downhill trend now in terms of severe weather concerns for the Panhandles. Just had that one tornado that briefly touched down before it moved into the west side of Oklahoma. They're south of Arnett. So that storm, again, is confirmed to have a tornado on the ground. Doppler on wheels has a really good visual of it from their radar perspective, because they're right up next to this thing. Looks like it may be occluding though. FDR is probably going to be our best option at this point. You can see again, velocity is still contaminated, but still definitely some strong gate-to-gate wind speeds there. See if we can't go back maybe a couple of scans to get a better one. Seems to be struggling. Looks like Amarillo's kind of done the best job in terms of picking up where that couplet was at. So this is just the last 15 minutes. You can see there's that couplet. Looks like it's mostly dissipated. Looks like that thing may be roping out here soon. Starts to occlude. It's getting wrapped back up into the forward flank downdraft of the storm. Still radar, still confirmed. And it looks like they just allowed that severe thunderstorm warning to expire here in the Texas Panhandle. So we may end up letting you guys go here now that things are getting quiet here. These storms are moving away from the Panhandle. We've got a few showers up here that are, staying mostly below severe limits. They're in a pretty stable environment, and this stuff continues to stay outside of the Panhandle also. So I do think that we'll let you guys get back to the rest of your evening. So that's kind of all she wrote. We just had that one supercell come through. It looked like it did put down a quick tornado maybe on the east side of Hemphill County before it moved into Roger Mills and Ellis County. They seem to be getting hammered this year with tornadoes kind of in that general area. Arnett's had several tornadoes this year, at least close by. This is another one. So, but we'll let you get back to the rest of your evening. We're going to end your live here since all these storms have now moved out of the Texas and Oklahoma Panhandle.